So the Babysitters Club is a thing. I mean, it's still a thing. Or like, it's a thing again. What I'm trying to say is there's a new Babysitters Club show, and it is excellent. I never really encountered the Babysitters Club before this. I was vaguely aware of the franchise, but beyond what I saw on the front of book covers and the fact that I knew it was about some girls babysitting, it never really caught my interest. I never knew that there was a TV show that aired in the 90s or a film until I did a little research. In fact, the only real attention I ever gave the show was that one episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine where like Amy is super into it for some reason.
And you didn't make fun of me for basing it all on the Babysitters Club.
And I even did your suggested reading of Christie's Big Day.
You did?
Calm down. You're such a Marianne.
I am! It's true!
So being the super curious and strange dude that I am, I dove into this new show with zero expectations and no background information. And what I got was a brilliant show about a group of friends that are navigating the hardships of middle school and family life as they slowly discover who they are and who they want to be. It sounds like every young adult coming of age story, I know, but I feel as though this one was more realistic than some of the other shows about children growing up, because this show doesn't pull any punches on the audience or its characters. I mean, there's no like massive gut punches or anything, but the show asks a lot of its characters, who are only like 12 or 13 years old, and in turn it asks the same of its audience. The result is this normalization of the hardships that young girls, but really just young people, deal with. And this is done in a way that sensationalizes and then removes the myth around a lot of these issues. And so today, I want to talk about the new Babysitters Club. Originally written in a series of novels spanning from 1986 to 2000 by Anne M. Martin, there were 131 books in 14 years! Holy crap! The story revolves around a group of girls in middle school that start a club/business where they babysit. Other writers have also contributed to the series as ghost writers, but the first 36 are all by one author. That is still a lot of books for one person. I know they're not War and Peace, but they're still like highly praised for their writing and character depictions. I read like 2,500 to 4,000 words a week for This Is a Thing, so 36 books is still a huge amount. In the 1990s, there was a single season show consisting of 13 episodes, and in 1995 there was a film produced that had zero relation. For almost 25 years now, a new generation of young people has been discovering and reading this series, which has helped maintain its popularity throughout the years. In 2019, it was finally announced that Netflix was working on a new series. Written by Rachel Shakert and produced by Michael De La Luca and Lucia Anilo, the show would be an updated version of the stories. It was both reformatted for modern audiences and brought into the contemporary time period rather than the 80s and 90s of its previous incarnations. The show revolves around a group of girls who create a business/club where they babysit. Shocker. True to the novels they are based on, each episode mimics the structure of the books, usually focusing on one member or introducing a soon-to-be member of the Babysitters Club, and then telling a story about their life growing up and their unique family, friendships, and traumas, while using the club as both a means of creating conflict and exploring the relationships and connections that are unique to a group of female friends. I'm glad the show takes its time introducing characters because there are a shit ton of them. By the end of the first episode, there are 4 members of the Babysitters Club, plus their own families. By the end of the season, there are 7 members of the club. It's exhausting. But the show handles this fairly well, spending time with each main character before moving on or introducing new characters. Every main character gets an episode to shine and tell from their perspective. Some of them even get 2. At first, there's only Christy Thomas and her best friend Marianne Spear. The former being a bossy know-it-all and generally the coolest person ever, and easily the one I relate to the most. Marianne is her sheltered but musical-loving friend. Later, they're joined by the artistic Claudia Kishi and the very intelligent and fashionable Stacey McGill, and eventually Dawn Schaefer, the West Coast feminist and environmentalist. Each young lady has their own unique arc over the course of the show. So spoilers, you should totally go watch this, but also I'm gonna do spoilers now. Christy is dealing with her mother's new boyfriend and the overwhelming sadness of her father's absence.
My dad left me. I don't know where he is. He hasn't called me in a year and a half.
Marianne slowly opens up over the course of the show into a more confident young woman who loves her father, but is no longer okay with being under the constant constraints of his unrelenting rules. Stacy is coping with a medical issue that she tries to keep secret, as it ruined her life at her old school and had some radical implications on her social life and her health. As it turns out, she's only diabetic, but the video of her having a hypoglycemic reaction is terrifying for her, and it's only when her new friends find out does she realize that real friends should accept her for who she is. Dawn experiences one of the potentially most traumatic experiences I think a babysitter could ever go through. Seriously, if I was only 13 years old and that happened to me while I was babysitting, I think I would still be seeing a counselor. Fucking hardcore. Claudia has one of the most interesting arcs. In her episode, we see that she is very creative, but she lives in this kind of academic shadow of her overly intelligent sister, Janine. While attempting to put a portfolio together for an art show, Claudia's grandmother becomes sick. Putting aside their differences, Janine tells Claudia about the history of their grandmother and what she went through, about how Japanese American citizens were placed in internment camps and detained unlawfully, and what their grandmother lived through when she was Claudia's age. Claudia realizes that this is her family history, and there's an importance to tell her grandmother's story using her unique artistic voice to do so. That's what I mean when I say this show doesn't pull any punches. The Babysitter's Club is unafraid to approach the ideas of prejudice, death, sexuality, abandonment, and depression, and how having a group of close friends can help you when you truly care for one another. As a community, the neighborhood comes together to help the Kishi family while they're dealing with this sickness in the family. It really underpins the whole idea of community that is represented in the show as a whole, but overtly in the club itself. The show does an amazing job of conveying these overwhelming emotions and the perception of these seemingly insurmountable problems that a young person feels. I certainly remember feeling that way about some of these things while I was growing up. But then the show also uses the affirmations of other characters and often the adults to say, it's okay to feel that way. Things can be scary when you are growing up, and the world is not always fair. But feeling this way is normal, and the experiences that you are going through are also normal. Never are the young characters told that the way they feel is only a symptom of their lack of experience or lack of maturity, otherwise known as ageism. I really enjoyed this show. I just wish the show was marketed towards males as much as it was towards females. Not that there's anything wrong with the show the way it is, and I'm not even suggesting that the show needs to change at all, just perhaps the way that it was marketed and presented. The show is very female forward, and I'm down with that, but I'm also an adult, sort of. And so I have the benefit of my own ability to subvert societal ideas of gender-oriented media. I like the girls' fashion styles. I think they're unique to each one of them and they reflect their personalities. And I appreciated the 90s retro chic aesthetic as a nod to the time frame of the books. But the show does a great job of normalizing the kind of things that girls are thinking about at that time of life. And I kind of wish I had seen something like that when I was a young boy. As an example, I want to take a closer look at Christy's arc. Through the series, Christy's mom has been trying to get Christy used to the idea of her boyfriend, Watson, both conceptually and the actual person. Christy is of course dealing with the fact that she feels abandoned by her father, and now the fact that her mother is not only seeing a new dude, but is also getting married. Side note, Christy's mom Elizabeth is played by Alicia Silverstone, which is of course another nod to the 90s.
My mom might have weird taste in men, but when it came to life, I guess she wasn't totally clueless.
Ha! I get it! From the very inception of the club, Watson and Elizabeth have been trying to get Christy to babysit Watson's kids. First there's the young and amicable Andrew, and then there's Karen, who is this slightly morbid, overly imaginative burning star of a young girl and is hands down the best part of the show.
And so, our heroine must bravely go off to the woods to reverse the curse.
Hello.
Just look at our little hobo bindle. Fucking life goals. Finally, in the 8th episode, Christy's Big Day, Elizabeth and Watson's wedding day arrives, and Christy winds up in a fight with her mother and spends the whole episode struggling to watch her mother be happy while reeling with the guilt of the argument and her own melancholy over her father and moving from her childhood house and gaining a stepfather. And to top it off, she's at a wedding with all of her friends and siblings and now step-siblings, and she just wants to have a good time, but she seems to be grumpy and not feeling well. Man, it's not easy being a young woman. Later in the bathroom, the rest of the Babysitters Club gather to check up on Christy, and she discovers that she's also having her first period. So the girls give her a pad and walk her through how to use it, and Christy runs outside just in time to talk with her mom. And the two of them have the best heart-to-heart in the whole show and possibly just ever. They reconcile and talk about how there's been so much change in their lives and that the two of them have been trying to talk to each other all night but didn't want to interrupt each other's fun. It's the most heartwarming thing I've seen in a long time. Finally, Christy mentions that she got her first period, and Elizabeth asks if she is okay, but of course Christy has her friends to rely on. That is the entirety of the story of Christy getting her first period. The show focuses on Christy's relationships rather than making the episode about her period, because it's not what's important for the show and for Christy. The fact that Christy gets her period is a kind of inconvenience rather than a central plot point. The show conveys that when a young girl gets her period, this is a normal event, and it doesn't require a special period or feminine health episode to make it acceptable to talk about. The show normalizes Christy getting her period, just as it does with Stacy's diabetes, because newsflash, periods are normal and it's okay to talk about them. Aw man, the Janglez, why you gotta talk about periods when you're a dude? because I have a really hard time understanding why men are so averse to the idea of a period, and I think that's why the show might benefit from some marketing towards males, both to help the show, but also because the more males that are exposed to the fact that periods are normal and that women deal with them and shouldn't have to hide or feel ashamed about something that is a daily part of their lives, the better, in my opinion. When my female friends feel comfortable telling me that they don't feel well because of their period, or that sometimes a little more thought has to go into planning activities because of a period, I try to be understanding. It is a thing that most women will have to deal with and experience throughout their life, and it's not the end of the world, and although the first one could be an overwhelming experience, it doesn't have to or need to be. In later books, there's a character named Logan who's introduced, and becomes part of the club, and I kinda hope the show does this as well, not that the show needs any more characters, but because the addition of a male protagonist surrounded by his female counterparts might entice a male audience. But honestly, the show doesn't need that, and it may not benefit from it, because there may not be a point to having a male character in a show that is supposed to be about girls having a voice. And really, there's nothing wrong with dudes watching shows about girls anyway. And as I've said on other episodes of This Is a Thing, young men would probably benefit from watching a show that does a superb job of portraying young women as they're growing up without the need for a male perspective. And yes, I do realize the irony of this video. All the problems the characters face are realistic and, more importantly, are not always easy or delicate, but the show always focuses on the interpersonal relationships rather than the actual problems themselves. It normalizes the events and then reinforces the importance of familial and friendly relationships. And this is the true genius behind the Babysitters Club. Here are a few other reasons the Babysitters Club is genius. The last 2 episodes of Camp Moosehead are excellent and show off how these bright young women can deal with and stand up for what they believe is right and just without the help or guidance of their parents. Casting Alicia Silverstone was a stroke of genius, and she does a great job supporting Christy and the other girls throughout the show. All of the young actresses are top notch, and although the show reveals its targeted demographic in the early episodes, the longer I watched, the better it got. The scene with Marianne and the doctors was fucking spot on, because although what she's doing is important societally and socially, the episode hinges on that scene for a completely different emotional arc. I know I already mentioned it, but the heart-to-heart between Christy and her mother is the greatest moment in the show, except for any scene that has Karen in it.
Maybe I just shouldn't be a part of your new fancy family at all.
Honey, it's gown time.
Best character. Hey, thanks for watching that video. I truly enjoyed this show and I did want to talk about it, even though I do understand the irony of being a man talking about a female show from a female point of view, but I really thought that maybe there would be a benefit to talking about this kind of subject from a male point of view and why males might benefit from it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments about this kind of subject matter. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, feel free to subscribe and like so you can catch more of our episodes of This Is a Thing and our weekly episodes of Cinemaster's Ultimate Timeline.